We think nothing can happen to us even though we may be innocent. Well, this is what happened to one of the greatest baseball players to ever live. So today I'm going to discuss Shoeless Joe Jackson. Even though he maintained his innocence up until the day he died, he and 8 others were ejected from baseball and banned for life for playing a confidence game on Major League Baseball. They were banned for life for throwing the World Series against the Cincinnati Reds in 1919. For years I have for year, for years I have been an advocate of Shoeless Joe Jackson because all evidence points to the fact that one of the greatest baseball players to ever live was actually innocent of throwing the World Series in 1919. Shoeless Joe Jackson was born July 16th, 1887, in Pickens County, South Carolina, according to BaseballReference.com. He never learned to read or write, he once said. It don't take school stuff to help a fellow play ball. By age 7, he was working in a textiles factory, and he worked most of his early years. This according to SABR.org. By the age of 13, he was playing baseball for his local textiles factory baseball team, and he dazzled the fans. His home runs were known as Saturday night specials. In 1908, he got in a contract with the Greenville Spinners of a Class D team that was newly formed for $75 a month, which was the lowest level of organized professional baseball. He spent the first few seasons in Major League Baseball bouncing around their system, and in 1910, he was traded to the Cleveland Navs for another player and $6,000. By 1911, he batted a whopping 408, and although that is extremely high, Ty Cobb took home the batting title that year. By 1915, the Navs could no longer afford him, so they traded him to the Chicago White Sox for $31,500 and 6 players. This is where the story really begins. So today I'm going to discuss Shoeless Joe Jackson and how he influenced my life by the career he had and what happened to him after the 1919 World Series. His is a sad story of a penny-pinching owner and a corrupt commissioner of baseball. By 1917, Shoeless Joe Jackson hit .301 and led the White Sox to the World Series title against the Giants. 1919, the White Sox were one of the best baseball teams of all time in all Major League Baseball. But by the end of the season, the fix was in. Because of a mercilessly penny-pinching owner named Charles Comiskey, the White Sox had decided to throw the World Series, according to History.com. There were supposedly 8 players who were in on the fix, and Shoeless Joe was supposedly one of them. During the series, Shoeless Joe Jackson had 12 hits in 35 at-bats, scored 5 runs by himself. He had 6 runs batted in, 3 doubles, and the only home run of any of the 2 teams playing, with 1 walk and only 2 strikeouts and no errors, according to BaseballAlmanac.com. Does this sound like a man throwing the series? Here we will look at the things that happened after the World Series. According to Britannica.com, by the summer of 1921, the 8 men were now standing trial for a conspiracy to commit a confidence game. 2 men were decidedly innocent because their performances during the World Series were outstanding. Those 2 were third baseman Buck Weaver and Shoeless Joe Jackson. By August 3rd, 1921, the headlines across America declared the White Sox players innocent by a court of law in Chicago that had found them innocent, according to rarenewspapers.com. After the trial, Judge Landis was made commissioner of baseball, and although the players were found innocent by a court of law, he still persecuted them and removed and banned them for life, which means they could never play Major League Baseball again or go into the Hall of Fame during their lifetime. The courts had lost the confessions, and Shoeless Joe was one of them. Was one of the ones that had come into question. Since he couldn't read or write, they made a confession, told him a lie, had him sign it. This was to me one of the most fraudulent things they had ever done to an innocent man. Ty Cobb once called him one of the greatest hitters of all time. Even after his ban, Shoeless Joe Jackson went to play independent ball under assumed names across towns in America because he was afraid of what people would think of him. His career totals were a whopping .356 average, 5-time MVP, 1,772 hits, and 56 home runs during the short 13 seasons he played. Ty Cobb years later walked into the store Shoeless Joe was running. At first, Shoeless Joe did not pay attention, and Ty Cobb said, "Hey Joe, don't you recognize me? You're play with. I didn't think anyone would want anything to do with me after what they did to me." I honestly do believe to this day, Shoeless Joe Jackson was probably one of the greatest hitters and fielders that ever played the game. And as a White Sox fan, and of course I might be biased, but the stats and the evidence are there. And it's about time Shoeless Joe Jackson gets a nod into the Hall of Fame. His lifetime suspension is long done, and he has been dead since 1951. If it weren't for him, such movies as 8 Men Out and Field of Dreams would have never been made. And he was the first to create a World Series ring, so without him, there is no World Series ring. Thank you for listening to this. I'm sorry for wearing the hat and the jersey. This was the only thing I had, honestly, as a visual aid, along with the flag and back, since he played for the White Sox. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and I will end this right here. Thank you.